What's up, everybody? This is your Uncle Bernie, man. I ain't dead yet. When I'm not dead, I'm listening to Artivist. We all be news and radio. I ain't scared of y'all. Kick it. What's up, Daddy Joe and jazz ladies out there? This is your boy, Satchel Armstrong, broadcasting live from the cabaret in the sky. And when I'm not busy doing my soloing on my two horn, I just tune into the Artivist presents We All Be News and Radio. Oh, yeah.
Good evening, family. Okay. No, it's good morning, or it's good night, or it's hello. This is the Artivist. This is R2C2H2, the Artivist, your host for the empowerment segment known as We All Be News and Radio. That's right. Everybody is on this show. They're calling in. That's listening right now. This is the chat room. We all family. We all be family on We All Be News and Radio. We got a great guest lineup and some great topics to discuss. Very important stuff. So if you want to get in on this, this is all the way live. Call us at 646-652-4593. Once again, that's area code 646-652-4593. If you're scared to get on the air, please hit us up by email at r2c2h2@gmail.com. Once again, that's alphabet R, numeric 2, alphabet C, numeric 2, alphabet H, numeric 2@gmail.com. And we got the chat room open as well. So we'd like to thank everybody for tuning in. It's very important stuff. We got topic, number one, our special guest. This brother's a true freedom fighter. He's a true unsolved hero. He's an advocate for the voiceless and for those no longer with us in this realm. And it is truly an honor to have him on. And before that, that was a brilliant song, Brother Vigalantee out of Kansas City. That's Brother Vigalantee out of Kansas City did that song entitled Emmett Till. And it was dedicated to, of course, Emmett Till and also to the Crusader brother known as Brother Alvin Sykes. And before we get these brothers on the air, I have to read a little something about Mr. Sykes because sometimes we don't always give flowers to those that deserve it while they can smell the flowers. And I just been Googling him up like crazy. And there's so many great things about this brother online. And he's doing so many great things in real time in our realm that we got to give him his rightful due. So I'm just going to read something from the Kansas City Star. I think it was beautifully written by this guy named, I believe his name is Steve Penn. Yes, the Kansas City Star. This is dated October 8th, 2008. Remember, this around the time where everybody was running scared, trying to get their money out the banks, trying to get their money out the stock market. This is what they were talking about, passing that first stimulus thing. And then through all that confusion came some sanity and logic. Well, on Tuesday, President Bush signed H.R. 923 without fanfare. With the stroke of the president's pen, the Emmett Till Unsolved Civil Rights Crime Act became law. The law adds to the growing legend of Alvin Sykes, who was able to achieve what crafty lawyers and influential Washington lobbyists find almost impossible. He persuaded the House and the Senate to agree on something. Watching Congress votes last week on the Wall Street bailout illustrated just how hard that is to accomplish these days. The legislation, known as the Till Bill, essentially will fund investigations of unsolved homicides from 1970 on back. Sykes not only came up with the idea for the Till Bill, he also helped craft the legislation. The law creates two positions, a special supervisory agent over the civil rights unit of the FBI and a deputy chief of the criminal section of the Civil Rights Division of the U.S. Justice Department, who will investigate the unsolved cases. The bill also authorizes up to $135 million over 10 years for investigations. Senator Tom Coburn, an Oklahoma Republican, put on hold legislation for 15 months, but the persuasive Sykes eventually persuaded Coburn to lead the charge for its passage. In the end, Coburn wasn't pleased that the Senate's Democratic majority wouldn't cut other priorities within the federal budget to pay for the bill. But not even those concerns could dull Coburn's glowing praise for Sykes. I can't say enough about his stamina, his integrity, his forthrightness, his determination, Coburn said of Sykes. So I come to the floor of the Senate to sing his praises and to recognize him publicly for his tremendous efforts. The Till bill is named after Emmett Till, an African-American teenager from Chicago who was beaten and killed August 28, 1955, after he allegedly whistled at a white woman in Mississippi. An all-white jury acquitted Roy Bryant and J.W. Milan, who eventually admitted their involvement to Look magazine. Now that the Till bill is law, it would create what Sykes called the greatest criminal manhunt in this country's history. We're hopefully going to find these perpetrators and held them criminally accountable for their deeds that were done so long ago that they thought they had gotten away with it, Sykes says. Sykes is a bit disappointed that the president didn't hold a signing ceremony for the bill at the White House. We wanted it to be at the White House so Emmett Till's family could benefit, Sykes says. However, we're going to do our celebrating of the bill in the courtrooms across America when the cases are prosecuted. We're already celebrating by striking fear into the hearts of those old men who thought they got away with these crimes. Sykes' works inspired a local rapper, Roger Shuggs, to create a song called Emmett Till, which I just heard. The song could be accessed at myspace.com/Vigalantee. That's Vigalantee. I decided to do it in hip-hop form, Shuggs said. There are many young people who don't even know about Emmett Till. I hope it makes people run back to the library to learn more about him. Sykes is an example of a regular guy who has done some remarkable things. He doesn't have a Juris Doctorate, a high school diploma, or even a GED. However, his victories in the courtroom and now in Congress rival those of many savvy lawyers and statesmen. Sykes can be pushy and a bit of a gadfly sometimes. No one can deny his effectiveness. He never let his education limit his dreams or his goals. As a result, Sykes will forever be associated with an important piece of civil rights legislation that passed Congress with unanimous consent. With partisan politics ruling the day, that can't be minimized or diminished in any way. Wow, that's amazing. There's so much stuff. Let's Google this brother up. It's amazing. But without further ado, we have Brother Sykes. Welcome to We All Beat News and Radio. Brother Alvin Sykes.
Brother Ryan, it is an
honor, man.
And it's Brother Artivist, right?
Yeah, it's brother. You call me Artivist or Brother Ryan, don't make a difference. It's an honor that you call me at all.
All right. Well, I am definitely pleased and honored to be on your show.
Yeah, well, so we got lots of stuff to get into because I think people need to know about the good works you're doing and how to support what you're doing. And also we got on the line one of your admirers and fans, Brother Vigalantee. Are you there? Brother Vigalantee?
Well, maybe he's not on there yet.
Yeah, he's not on there yet.
But let me tell you a little bit, Brother Vigalantee is even closer than that. He's a very good friend of my daughter, Kenya.
Mm-hmm.
And
hello.
So he
Hello. Yeah, Brother Vigalantee, we got you.
Yeah,
man.
can you hear me?
I'll be radio. Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah, what's going on, man? What's going on, Mr. Sykes? Go ahead and finish up those Sykes. Yeah, I'm friends with Kenya, and she introduced me to Mr. Sykes. Mr. Sykes, like you said earlier, Brother Ron, about giving somebody flowers while they can still smell it. This guy is a walking icon and legend, and I think it's time for us to wake up and start giving respect to people that's out here really putting themselves on the line and not just bojangling.
That's right. I like how you said no bojangling movement, right? That's you.
Yeah. It's called the no jangle movement, so we don't jangle.
I heard that.
Yeah.
No chain hanging low over there. I heard that.
No doubt.
Hey, Brother Sykes, you know what's interesting? I had to, because I know you both are musicians. Y'all got musician backgrounds. I think it's so interesting that so many of our great leaders of our community have entertainment on musician backgrounds. I think about, Louis Farrakhan being a calypso singer. I look at Al Sharpton working with James Brown. Malcolm X. Malcolm, if you don't know that he was good friends with Billie Holiday when he was in his fast days, running with them guys. And also Red Fox, that used to be dishwashers at Jimmy Chicken Shack up in Harlem. It's like our community, through the entertainment field, are able to breed such a diversity of leadership. Why is that so from both of you guys? Why do you think that is?
Okay. Well, go ahead, Al.
I can only speak in terms of for myself, how it ended up being for me. I came from a family of musicians. I was raised learning the piano and the trumpet, sang in the Boys Town Choir up in Omaha. But after a while, I realized that I really needed to, my most effectiveness would be on the promotion side and the business side. So I started managing groups here in Kansas City. And it was really that connection that got me into the Steve Harvey case, because Steve Harvey was a very prominent musician here, and he was a victim of a racial killing around the same time that 4 other musicians in the area were killed, not for racial reasons, but collectively it brought about a sensitivity to the violent community. So, sensitivity to the musical community, I should say. So for me, when I got involved in Steve Harvey's case, it wasn't so much from the standpoint of trying to get somebody to deter from or understand that they were violating a statute or some law. It was to put in people's mind that when they get ready to strike that blow, they might just say, this might be a musician, and they never give up. And that was more of, at the time, what my motivation was. So entertainment is a very powerful force. My relationship with Herbie Hancock and his support for the cases and all is all part of that. That would be my response on that.
Mine's
Brother Vigalantee?
Yeah, what's going on? Mine's a little different. Mine was more of, when you listen to some of the greatest artists, from Motown, Curtis Mayfield was like everything to me, because I think there was an icon that never got his respect, while he was living, all the knowledge he was given in his music, not just Superfly, way before that, with the impressions. So I studied that type of music, of course, Public Enemy, Last Poets, and stuff like that. And I think the connection with music and politics has always been there, because I think that we use it as a form of communication, and to me, that's the true and most potent form of hip-hop, is when you're out there reaching and teaching people. And that's one of the reasons why when I met Mr. Sykes, I was saying that, man, somebody need to hear this story. You look at Wikipedia, you see Emmett Till. You look up Emmett Till, music about Emmett Till, you see Bob Dylan, and you see Kanye West. So what got me mad one day, I checked out Bob Dylan's song, which was pretty cool and pretty bold for him to make that song. And then they was tagging Kanye West with it, and all he did was make a reference of when he was in a car accident that his jaw got him looking like Emmett Till. And my mindset was, how dare you compare your jaw, to Emmett Till?
Right.
And then, when you start asking kids about it, when Sykes and them had a thing down in Kansas City, and a lot of people didn't know about him, and they kind of knew, it kind of aggravated me. So I said, you know what, let me go back, and I let Mr. Sykes hear was over his daughter's house. I let him hear the track. I said, what do you think? He said, do it. And I laid it down, and you notice in that song run that there is no opinion of mine. I tell the story exactly how it is.
Right.
And that's the powerful form of music, and that's why I think the connection with other stars and stuff is that it's a form of expression and a form of us releasing whatever we feel.
That's totally true. I agree with it. I co-sign what everybody said on that. And also, I'm glad Brother Sykes touched on the Steve Harvey case, because it was ironic that, several years ago, I remember I'm a big fan of the History Channel and A&E, especially like Cold Case Files and American Justice. And I saw the profile they did on Brother Steve Harvey, and to see you there and to put you put it all together and say, wow, this is a guy that worked on that as well as this, the Emmett Till bill. Now, I just want to know, I read some things online from the Kansas City area about how you got involved. What type of experience make a person like you become this great, freedom fighter?
Well, for me, it started as a child, around 10 years old. There were some people who lived across the street from me, and my mom, who had raised me, had told me and warned me to stay away from those people, and that they were bad people, and if she called me over there, she'd kill me. But they had candy, and that outweighed the concerns, and I started going over there. At first, they just gave me candy, and they were, adult from that, 19 to 21 in that age, 22, somewhere around there. And then ultimately the candy stopped, and they sexually assaulted me. And at the time, I couldn't go and tell my mom what had happened, so because of what she had said, and the police seemed so far away. So I tried to deal with it myself by going back and questioning them, and it just happened again. So at that point, I realized that there needed to be some people or activists or people in between the family and law enforcement that could help bridge the gap and bring them together. The next year, Martin Luther King was assassinated, and there was rioting in Kansas City, and during the course of the rioting, I couldn't understand why all these people were tearing up the black community in the name of a man who had devoted his life to peace. And so I and a friend of mine started a community police force, so to speak, which was just us riding around on bicycles, turning into people that were starting the fires. So that began my level of activism. And then years later, as I started gaining my education, I realized I had went to Boys Town, and Boys Town had put a lot in its resources and all into education, took it very seriously. And when I came back home and then moved to Kansas, during that time frame, it seemed to me that there was more of a focus on getting a piece of paper than it was on getting the education. And for me, at that time, the two most important things to me was education and my spiritual self. So I figured, I said, hey, I can only get my education once, so I can do just as well myself as to entrust with them. And so I transferred from the public schools to the public library and started going to the library every day and learning and turning the librarians into my de facto teachers, and would go through the learning process, learning what I needed to go. And soon it evolved going to court and sitting in the courtrooms in just any kind of case. It didn't matter, and just watching how the administration of justice went. So that's the genesis of it. It took me on to later on learning how to use that as a great equalizer to help people find truth and justice in their own lives and their own situations, which led to Steve Harvey's case and ultimately to Emmett Till's, the reopening of Emmett Till's case and all the other cases I've worked on over the years, and then now the passage of the Till bill.
I mean, that's something you turn like a tragedy into a triumph, because I don't know, it puzzles my mind because it's talking to people, especially people like in their 40s and stuff. They tell me that they've been, abused. I had an uncle that was in the same situation you was in. He's no longer with us, but he got abused by people that my grandma told him to stay away from. And she went, and I'll tell you a story. She found out because, here is a guy, he went from doing good in class to being disruptive, a problem child. And the teacher, met with him and found out that he was getting molested by a guy that lives in the neighborhood who was molesting a whole bunch of black boys. He was a black man who was going around molesting all these kids, black kids in the neighborhood. And my grandma said, she found out they called a meeting at the school. My grandma met with the principal and the teacher, and she was going to go to the authorities, but they told her, don't go to the authorities. No, you don't do that. Just, keep them away from them. But, somehow he kept on, ended up over there. They took advantage of him, and they took advantage of so many kids. And I'm wondering how many of those stories are out there, you think, that people have been abused like that in our communities, and why do you feel that people keep it in such a taboo type of way? Like, why is this such a taboo in the black community about, child abuse, sex abuse, and things of that nature?
Every day, almost literally, I encounter someone else who either tells me that they went through it or currently going through it or seeking out help. Why it may be prevalent in the black community as opposed to the other communities, I can't even tell, because it may be silent over there in the other communities as well. I think, though, that a overriding reason why is the shame factor that comes with it, the guilty feeling. I've met some who the perpetrators threatened to kill their families, and they would carry that with them. So for me, it was very difficult to talk to until I was nearly 29, let me see, I guess 30, maybe 30, when I was invited to Chicago to speak at a conference for Mothers of Murdered Children's conference. And before I got to the conference, there's just in the weeks leading up to it was just some kind of burning desire that I needed to get this out, to bring it out. And I hadn't had that feeling before. Over the years, I just kept turning the poison into medicine, and as it got more distant from the initial incident to being replaced by all the accomplishments with the various cases, it became further away. But at that point, it just had to come out. And so at that conference in Chicago was the first time that I talked about it. I would hope that people would speak and talk about it. It is an act of violence. They need to come. There's nothing to be ashamed about. They need to come forward, and in that sense, you can have a victory over violence. If you can come forward, talk to some adult, to anyone that you can trust, to bring out what has happened, because it can consume you if you don't.
That's true. And also, I touched on Brother Alvin talking about how, although he didn't go to, mandatory school where they, require you to go to school by law, that he used the library as the school. Well, Brother Alvin used the library as his school and the librarians as his teachers. And Brother Vigalantee, you said in the Emmett Till song that, hopefully, you said in the article in the Kansas City Star, that hopefully what you're doing with this rap music as far as educating our young people, that they would have the desire to go to the library and learn more about Emmett Till. But then I look at the fact that so many of our public schools are failing our young people. You got young folks not just earning GEDs, not just dropping out, but earning diplomas and can't read and write. So, right. What can you do? I'll ask both of y'all, what needs to be done then? Because this is a crime against humanity right here.
Yeah, it is. Quickly, I think that we have an initiative program in Kansas City, Kansas Community College called Friends for Benefit of Education, along with Dr. McDowell. And what we're doing now with this program is we're tackling those issues. We are actually going into the schools and getting these students that's on the fringe. And one of our main mission statements is putting young adults and young African Americans kids into position to compete. Most of the time, they get, like you say, they get the diploma and they can't read, so they're not in the position to compete. So we kind of got an intense program to make sure that when they go look for a job or something like that, that they're prepared for that. And as for the part where you said about, when I said about in the article about getting the youth to go to the library, I think that the show that you're doing, Alvin Sykes, and I think we need to push the hip hop stations and sites to keep up with this like they used to. Emmett Till thing, that the Till bill that Alvin Sykes helped put in motion was swept under the rug from a hip hop standpoint. I sent emails to allhiphop.com, to Hip Hop DX, SOHA, every hip hop site, saying check out this Emmett Till thing. Not just personally about the music, there was not a mention. I talked to Forrest Watkins about that. He put it on his site, but there was not a mention of this Till bill in hip hop. And that blew me away. And that's what I'm saying, have we became so radical that we have been trained now to just do the pimp and thug stuff and miss out on Alvin Sykes. There should have been interviews like yours to Alvin Sykes about what this means for hip-hop. You talk about Public Enemy, KRS-One, and all that type of stuff. Common. Nobody mentioned it. Nobody. It blew me away.
You know, it's ironic you said Public Enemy because, you know, Chuck D said that famous line that hip-hop is Black America's CNN. I mean, that's what we know. And then you think about Emmett Till case, it was the black media. I mean, like John H. Johnson showing that photo in Jet Magazine.
Of course, back in the day,
man. Right, back in the day, they had an obligation, and they were serving the community. But I guess we have let it break. We've co-opted for certain sponsors, and the very art form that gave us the power to make change was hip-hop. You know, but yet, if you ain't talking about stunting and bling-bling or not like that or having rap beef, then you're non-issue. But it was really shocking. When that is a major thing. A lot of you, like, you know, we give love to A.L.L. and all this, but to Al Sharpton and Jesse, I give props to them for their work, their BOW, their body of work. But Alvin Sykes put something on the books, man. This is on paper. The Till bill is on paper. That's a big deal. It's so true. And then we got a caller from good old state of Arkansas, a good friend of the struggle. And he's going, speaking of the Till bill, his brother John. You there? Brother John Gibson?
My husband's on a conference call, and this is his wife, Judy.
Hey, Sister Judy, how you doing? Well, it's good to hear you.
Fine.
It's good to have you on.
Yes, you might have covered this already. I was late calling in, but
no, you fine. Right on time.
This was brought to us with by another president of the Veterans of the Mississippi Civil Rights Movement, Jimmy Travis, and Ben Chaney, his the brother of James Chaney. Yeah. But the information was about 2 or 3 years ago at one of our memorial services for the civil rights martyrs in Mississippi. Yeah. And it has to do with there is a flaw in the Emmett Till Act now. It has been passed. But the flaw is that the final decision to prosecute the cases will reside with the state prosecutors. We feel that could be in some ways a conflict of interest. For one thing, will they be motivated to prosecute? These are elected offices. They depend on people to elect them within the state. Potentially, some wealthy person who is a still living suspect for some of the murders could be one of their campaign contributors. We thought that a better amendment might be that it go to the level of where it would be prosecuted by a special prosecutor, in some cases a federal prosecutor, and it would remove it from those states who have reasons potentially not to prosecute, not to pursue the murderers very vigorously. And also, if Mr. Sykes could speak to the issue of the states trying to rewrite black history, trying to sanitize the South for reasons of businesses, drawing businesses to the state, and also the tourist business. Civil rights is now big business. It's big tourist business. And so there's a hidden agenda there to sanitize, to rewrite history, which is another reason for not fully prosecuting these cases. So that was just something I wanted to mention.
Well, I'm glad you did. You raised a good point, and I'm glad this gives an opportunity to explain the mechanics of the Till bill and how it operates. Underlying all the efforts is this one word called jurisdiction. And jurisdiction means that the state and the federal government have the various jurisdiction or authority to be able to engage and become involved in a matter. The way that the Kill Bill is set up and the reason why it operates as it is because the money comes from the federal government. The federal government's role is in the enforcement, jurisdictional role is in the enforcement of federal laws. But there are laws and provisions that allow for the federal government to use its resources to investigate a particular matter that is not necessarily federal jurisdiction to prosecute, or in this instance, the statute of limitation has expired for that particular act, and they can't prosecute. So most of these cases that are being investigated now will not be prosecuted on the federal level because the statute of limitation expired 5 years after the event to prosecute civil rights violations. The only way that would be prosecutable on the federal level is if it's, say, for instance, it was on a federal property that a murder was committed. Well, then the federal murder statute would become involved, and there's no statute of limitation on murder on the federal level, and there's no statute of limitation on the state level. So, but as far as the local prosecutors, yes, there is an uneasiness as it relates to the state prosecutors becoming involved. But we have found out, and especially since '89, that a lot of that has to do with the older generation of prosecutors and those that were involved in the state system. What we have found that in this younger generation of folks that have been involved in the state prosecutors and state investigators, they haven't been tainted by the fears and the holdbacks of the past. So they've been coming out front in prosecuting where they have. Since 1989, there have been 29 cases on the state level that have been prosecuted, and out of those, 22 convictions have come out of those 29. The bottom line, though, is money. When you're asked in terms of, well, why would the state prosecutors get involved? Because there's money there. One of the things that when we went to and opened up the Emmett case, and we were meeting with the local U.S. attorney and prosecutors, and they were given the reasons of why it would take jurisdiction, why it would take certain evidentiary bench holds. But when I said to them, if we get you the money from Washington to investigate the case, then what? U.S. attorney didn't skip a beat. You get the money, we investigate it. That really becomes the bottom line. Because when you're at most of these prosecutors in these offices are small prosecutors, offices in small counties, and they don't have the money, even if they wanted to. They don't have the money and the means to go all over the country, find these witnesses of people who left the South and went along the migration route to the North and to investigate any cases. So when they have to make a decision, they have to say, do we have the money to be able to do it? And that's when the answer comes back no. But when you got a pot of money that's sitting there, $2 million from out of this $135 million, $20 million of that over the 10 years are for grants to the state. $5 million is to a year is to the FBI unit that will focus on this. $5 million a year will be to the Civil Rights Division in terms of the prosecutorial side of it. Now, in terms of the prosecutorial side, and she brought up a good point, and that's why it's not really a flaw, it's just that she doesn't understand the totality of it. Part of the route of action, even though the federal government won't be able to prosecute in particular cases on the federal level, they will be able to, as they did in the Birmingham case, have their attorneys specially deputized in state court. That is the route we're taking right now with Cheney, Goodman, and Sherman as we push that to the top to be reopened and reinvestigated and re-prosecuted, because one of the perpetrators that missed getting prosecuted, Billy Wayne Posey, by one vote, had a cousin on the grand jury, and the cousin didn't vote for him. So we asked the federal government to take that case back, but this time have a civil rights attorney from Washington present the case to the state grand jury. They then would be the ones that make the final decision on as to whether the case would go forward, and if there's an indictment that would come out of it, they would be able to prosecute and take the lead on prosecuting the case in state court. So it's not always going to be the state folks and the local folks that will be making the decision, but even in those instances where there is, those people are showing more and more as to if you bring them the money and you bring them the evidence, and there's this young, when we speak about hip-hop, I guess, try to parallel to there's a hip-hop generation of prosecutors that are in those offices. These are young folks that are not intimidated. They don't have that fears and stuff of the past, and that's why these cases that are being prosecuted, convictions are coming out of them, and they will continue to come out of these cases as this manhunt gets underway all throughout the country. So that was not a flaw. It was a recognition in the infrastructure of developing this statute as to what it would take to be able to go forward. And the realization, which is another thing, and then I'll go on to the next one, is that each year 7,000 to 10,000 criminal civil rights complaints are filed each year in the Civil Rights Division, the U.S. Attorney's Office, and FBI offices around the country. Out of that number, about 100 of them get to court. So there's an internal battle that goes on for resources to investigate these cases versus the ones that are happening now versus taking those that may be from years ago. So that is why we set up this statute, realizing the limitations that are there in having the maximum opportunity to get the maximum amount of prosecution and resources put together, that we did it the way that we did it. Now there will be, for the next 10 years, there will be money set aside solely for this. It's not in competition with other resources. And this will be the greatest criminal manhunt where we will be reaching out all throughout the United States, having community forums throughout the South and out the North where people left and went to other areas to get people to understand that now is the best and last chance to gain justice for our people who went through this experience, and that we will use and have the resources of the federal government to be able to do this until we get to the point to where every possible perpetrator of civil rights, unsolved civil rights era murder is either brought to the bar of justice or they die in fear that the knock will be next for them.
So the system isn't necessarily broke. You just got to know how to work the system to get what you want. You just got to know your way around the system.
Got through the system.
No, you got through the system. Okay. And we got a lot of people on the phone. You got a brother, I think it's 601 Jackson, brother Dr. Jughead. Dr. Jane Young, are you there?
Good evening. Good evening. How you doing?
I'm going to have you on, sir, and thank you. If it wasn't for you, I don't know if I would have Brother Sykes on tonight.
Well,
good to see you.
I said I wanted to call in and let you know that how much I appreciate what Alvin has done. I had the pleasure of meeting him, ironically, at the homegoing of Mrs. Fannie Chaney. And Alvin and I met Mrs. Fannie Chaney when they were still searching for the bodies in 1964. I was at the Corps convention, and she was there also. And I got a haircut that got national attention. And about a month before that, me and Mrs. Fannie Hamer testified about police brutality at the COFO hearings to get federal presence into Mississippi to protect, ironically, to protect the civil rights workers. And from there, in June of 1964, we testified in Congress. Ann Moody and I, Ann Moody, who wrote the book Coming of Age in Mississippi, we went by bus from Washington, D.C. to the Corps convention, and I met Mrs. Chaney when they had just announced that the bodies that they were missing there at the Corps convention. There's a picture I have. I'll share it with you at some point too, Ron. me talking to Mrs. Cheney in July of 1964 when they were finding the bodies, and about a month later, on Barack Obama's birthday, August 4th, I think it was, that they found the bodies there in Philadelphia, Mississippi. And also another part of that history is that while they were searching for Cheney, Goodman, and Schwerner, they found a whole lot of bodies that nobody had ever talked about in Mississippi. Alvin was also present too, Ron, at the James Ford Seals trial prior to going back to Washington to testify on the Emmett Till legislation. And he sat through that trial several days, and I think the last time we spoke was outside the courthouse because he was making arrangements then to leave Jackson to go to Washington, D.C. to testify about that legislation, which became a reality. And we have to thank Alvin for his perseverance on this case, because Eric Holder said it is going to be a new day in the United States Department of Justice, and civil rights is going to be given a high focus, because, you know, he is the brother-in-law of Vivian Malone, who helped desegregate the University of Alabama, and he spoke down at Morehouse College the other week. But again, people need to understand that Alvin has persevered. He's kept the memory of Emmett Till alive, and not only has he kept the memory of Emmett Till alive, but so many other martyrs, known and unknown. And I hope that we will wake up and utilize this opportunity, which Alvin suggested, and taking part in community forums, because a lot of people left Mississippi. My parents stayed here, thank goodness, but a lot of people went straight up 55 to get away from Mississippi because it was a rough time to be black and living in the state of Mississippi. And I'm just thankful again, Alvin, that Ron reached out to you this evening so that you can let people know who you are and what you've been doing, and the importance of people participating in this process.
It's certainly good to talk to you again. I do remember that, and that experience in Jackson was a very good experience. And now, even though that the Court of Appeals has three-panel has overturned the conviction in that case, there will be a rehearing, which is called en banc, by the entire Court of Appeals next month in New Orleans. And we feel very confident and very good about the appeal that will be able to stick and set more of a precedent, so more of these cases can be tried in that fashion. Now, for that James Seals case that he's talking about, that's only the second one that has been done in federal court, and it was one of those rare instances where you were dealing with both the kidnapping taken across state line, and that part of the incident occurred on federal property in a forest, a federal forest.
A national park.
Right. And so we're definitely moving forward with that. Jackson will be the site of the first.
Because right here in Jackson, Mississippi today, Alvin, there are people who don't understand who Medgar Evers was and what his contribution was. Right. A lot of people my age don't understand what happened to Emmett Till, the horrific thing that happened to Emmett Till. A lot of people don't know the story of Cheney, Goodman, and Schwerner, and I think it's important that we stress this education, because that's part of our history, and I think it's important that young people understand how we got to where we are today through the sacrifices of blood, sweat, tears, and lives of some people, and these people need to be recognized. And I can't say enough how much I appreciate your persevering efforts.
Well, thank you very much. And it's part of, I feel, it's part of my mission. I'm standing on a lot of other shoulders in terms that come before this. And one of the things that I said to Senator Talent when I first broached this with him was, I said the success of this bill will not be will not be measured so much by how many of the Emmett Tills or the Cheney, Goodman, and Schwerners, the well-known cases that people know about. It will be measured by the no-name cases, the ones that people didn't even know when Johnny disappeared in the middle of the night, and nobody ever seen him again, and nobody ever looked for him again. This happens so frequently in our past, and with the sanction of the law and law enforcement, the people there didn't even have a chance. It was so rhythmic that when prosecuting people ask me, they always try to say, well, how many of these cases are out there? And I tell them, I can't tell you how many. It was so prevalent on it, and we can't even get boxed in. What we need to do and what this is designed to do is to make the most sweeping, encompassing pursuit possible in the most quick and fastest way possible before everybody dies or their memories are gone, to find this out. And keep in mind that once it actually gets into the system, and some of the evidence gets in there, it's not as difficult. Because, see, a lot of times the people back there didn't even have a clue that anybody was ever going to be looking at these cases later. So they had the arrogance of leaving shotguns and trunks and different things. Some of the evidence that we find out now, we get off the Internet in terms where people didn't even, are able to pull back and maybe get newspapers and that have been put online, and things will come of that nature. So what people need to do, and where we say after you put all this money behind it and resources to prosecute it, the one single thing that will be most helpful in getting this done is we have to have a national conversation. We have to, the young folks need to talk to their grandparents. They need to find out the names who disappeared, find out the names of the perpetrators
You're right, Alvin, because,
were involved, and come forward with it, because that's really the only way that we're going to have a outreach. I mean, we could sit up and put the monies there and have an office created, and they sit in Washington and wait until somebody comes to them, and you will get some that way. But that's not the most comprehensive way. We need to have an outreach where we're reaching out into the community and educating people and setting up a justice-seeking atmosphere around the country so that people will want to work together to solve these cases and to gain truth and justice behind it. And it becomes a healing process. Some people think that there is a lot of adversity that comes with this, but so far we've been seeing a lot of healing and people coming together, and white people in the community coming forth with information, blacks being able to work together. I just got back from Monroe, Georgia, Saturday, where Elwin Wilson, a former Ku Klux Klansman who had beat up John Lewis real bad on the bridge on Bloody Sunday, where he came forward recently on his own and went to John Lewis's office and apologized for what he did. And he came down to Monroe, Georgia, Saturday to urge anybody that knew about the Malcolms and the Dorseys lynching that occurred in 1946
right there
to come forth as well.
From the University of
Georgia.
So
we're seeing more and more of that happening as we work to close this chapter, but not just sweep it under the rug, but close it as a result of a criminal manhunt and the greatest pursuit for truth and justice that this country has ever had since we have come here. In the Till bill, by turning the poison that came out of Emmett Till's death and Steve Harvey's death and these Cheney, Goodman, and Cerner and Emmett Till and Charles Moore and Hezekiah D. and all these names, turning it into the medicine of justice for so many other people is what this is really and ultimately about. And it was what helped make sure that the bill got passed because the spirits were in Congress all during this time in terms of pursuing and overcoming the obstacles. And so, yes, Jackson will be the site of the first community forum. We're working to get the place and waiting until the money's in place for the federal government to do it. But we're going to be going and have it in Memphis and other cities and out throughout the South. Not throughout the North, so that we can get the evidence and bring it forward. So again, all of your listeners, they can contact us by on the website, by reaching alvinsykes.com, and that will give you contact information on it. And if you know of any cases or any names, don't try and psycho-investigate it. Just get us the names, get us the circumstances.
Well, Alvin,
start to look into it and see that it gets on the list and look into into it and try and find the truth as to what happened.
Well, you know, Alvin, Obama's from Chicago, and I always call Chicago the northern part of Jackson, Mississippi. You got more black people from Mississippi living in Chicago than you got black people living in Mississippi. So that's a wealth of information.
We will be in Chicago. We'll have it in Detroit. Detroit is a lot of people went to Detroit, and that's where you need to. That's really where the names really are, because what happened was the people, the victims and their families, they left the South, but the perpetrators stayed where they were at. So consequently, in Jackson and Monroe and all these communities, the perpetrators stayed there, but the people left. So we want to be true to getting as many as possible. You got to go to those communities like Chicago, like Detroit, and other places along the migration route.
Well, Ron,
I want to reach out to these people.
I know you got just
let
a few more
them know
minutes
that
this hour.
there's a different FBI, there's a different Justice Department. Eric Holder, who I had worked with during his time when he, primarily when he was the Deputy Attorney General on it, and I observed how he was when he was the United States Attorney for the District of Columbia, and had other colleagues that worked with him. And he is totally committed not just to getting justice for all and justice in these cold cases, but he very much has no tolerance for police brutalities and other hate crimes that occur. And we plan to work very closely with him on it. Right now we're in the midst of having a request for a summit meeting with the President and the Attorney General, as well as family members and supporters of the unsolved civil rights heirs murders, so that the administration can underscore its emphatically its commitment to resolving and solving these murders that occurred so long ago. So we will definitely keep you apprised as the development for the meeting takes place, and as we start the outreach. Some people may have heard something about the Till bill not being funded. That wasn't a correct statement, and I'd certainly like to take the opportunity right now to clear what that was. Basically, the Till bill was signed into law October 7th of 2008. The fiscal year 2009 started October 1st. So the time for the bill to come into being funded is in fiscal year 2010, which is in October 1st of this year. But since during Eric Holder's hearing, Senator Coburn had asked him if the federal government and Congress didn't fully fund the bill, would he move monies around within his own resources within the Justice Department to fund these activities, and he publicly stated then and has reiterated since then.
I remember that.
That's what he will do. So that's the basis of the meeting that's in the works now. We don't know whether it's going to be at the White House. Our preference is that it be down in Alabama at the site of the Martyrs Wall, but we'll go wherever he wants to have it. And what we need more than anything now is for people to start talking amongst themselves and find out these names. You'll be surprised how the names will start to pop up. You may be talking to your grandmother, and she may not know anything, but she may talk to one of her friends and say, my grandson was talking to me about killings back then, and I didn't know nothing. And that person may say, well, I did. So it's the dialogue that will produce what's needed in terms of the names and evidence, and now we will have the resources of the federal government to up to $135 million for the next 10 years to seek, find, and prosecute where possible all unsolved civil rights era murders from 1970 and before, just as in a way that called the bill, the Leave No Child Behind. We don't want to leave any unsolved as possible, any victim from the civil rights era possible left behind. And as long as somebody is alive and the evidence can be found, we will be pushing to see that they are brought to the bar of justice.
Well, Brother Alvin, let me go back and ask you this. Like, how will you define the civil rights era? What's the definition of the civil rights? What period are we talking about?
The definition in the Till Bill is from 1970 and before.
So it may go all the way up until like the 19th century too. I mean, like, you know, there's a lot of things.
It can go all the way back as long as someone's living. Right now, the oldest case that's being actively investigated is the one where I just came from Monroe, Georgia, the Dorseys and the Evans, 4 people who were killed in 1946. And that's the oldest active one that's being investigated right now. But if anybody is alive in any other cases before 1946, and there's evidence, they're eligible to be brought forward. So that's one of the reasons why during the last several years we have encouraged perpetrators in communicating to them and saying, if you are a perpetrator, this is the time for you to get a defense attorney, talk to the prosecutor, and start working on a plea bargain. Bring forth what you have, because the one who gets the best deal is the one that comes first in terms of evidence against somebody else that is more involved. And if you fail to do that, then you'll be the subject of one of the most comprehensive criminal manhunts in this country's history. And they laughed in the first few years, and I could hear some of them laughing, but they ain't laughing now.
You like kind of like
1970. You know, in 1967, a young brother who was a civil rights activist was shot down on Lynch Street right down from the campus of Jackson State. And then a few years later, 2 young men were killed on the campus of Jackson State. I was there that night, Philip Gibbs and James Green. So can these cases also be looked at also and revisited?
Yes, you said 1967?
Yep, and 1970.
Yeah. Yeah, any from 1970 and before can be looked at. Now, even so, people not to deter them if it happened after 1970. The only distinction is this: if it happened 1970 and before, it goes to that one special prosecutor's office that in the criminal section of the Justice Department and in the Civil Rights Unit of the FBI to be investigated with those resources. But let's say in the course of looking at those cases, or people come forward with something that happened within 1971 or 72, that doesn't mean that those can't be prosecuted. That just means it will be brought to the criminal section of the Civil Rights Division in use of the resources of that state, that wherever that occurred, it's done on the federal level. So while we tell people specifically from 1970 and before, we don't want people to think that that's just it in terms of the federal government's responsibility in looking at these cases. If it's after 1970, it still can be looked at within the normal resources of the Civil Rights Division and the FBI.
I want to ask you this, because I know you said the oldest case so far is the 1946 lynching in Georgia, but you know, you in Missouri, and sometimes my friends call it misery. Some of my Missouri friends, and I want to ask you about the Lloyd Gaines case. Has anybody approached you about Lloyd Gaines, the guy who tried to get into the University of Missouri Law School, who disappeared back in 39 or 38? I believe.
We were very much, even before getting involved with Emmett Till's case, I was concerned about that case as well, and particularly after I met Miss Bluford, who was the head of the call paper here. She died several years ago, and she was one that eventually got through, I think, following that at the University of Missouri. So, yes, we are. That is on the list. That is being looked at, and it will be raised a discussion about it in May here in Kansas City, when we're going to have a community forum here that's in the works now, where Keith O'Shunk and some of the FBI will be coming here to have a forum here, and we'll be raising that case and bringing that to the forefront as well. So, yes, now we don't know where it's at in terms of the status of the investigation, the review into it, and whether it's elevated to the level of the investigation or not. but it's certainly on the list to be reviewed, and we're certainly looking at it closely.
You know, along those lines, the University of Southern Mississippi, Clyde Kennard made a courageous attempt to desegregate the University of Southern Mississippi, and his story is one that needs to be told, because how they mistreated that brother. He eventually died of cancer, but he was incarcerated on some trumped-up charges and sent to Parchment, not given a proper medical attention. And I think Dick Gregory intervened. And in the end, it got him out of there. And he went to Chicago and lived for a few years before he died. But his name was Clyde Kennard, and that's a story that again, you know, it needs to be looked into and also exposed just for if there's not enough investigative information, people just need to know what Clyde Kennard did to try to bring about the desegregation of the University of Southern Mississippi and Hattiesburg, Mississippi.
Right. I'd like to hear more on that. Yeah, that would be good. We need to know more names, know circumstances, and be able to document them, and where there can be something done, we certainly want to see it done. And then a lot of times when it can't be done, even the family members feel a sense of closure that people thought enough and respected enough to even look into their situation years later to try and get the truth to it. So.
Later, after the program goes off this evening, I'll send you some information on Clyde.
I'd certainly like to hear more of it now. Okay. You know, following, we can stay in communication.
Okay. Well, Ron.
Yes, sir.
Ron, before you go, I want to thank you because, like you said, your mention of Emmett Till made me think of what all that Alvin Sykes had done, and I wanted to make sure that you got in contact with him because this brother's been doing an outstanding job, and you can see the result, the fruits of his labors, and I hope to stay in contact with both you and Alvin in the coming days and weeks.
I definitely look forward to it.
Okay, but
look forward to seeing you when I get
Ron,
down
thanks again. Bye-bye.
No problem. Thank you for calling. We got another caller been waiting patiently from Arkansas. This area code 870-275. You on the air? Yeah, 870-275. Okay.
Good to you.
Hello.
Hey, John. This is John.
Yeah, how you doing?
Hey, how you doing, man? Welcome, man. Thanks for waiting so long. I know it's
I was listening. I was listening.
You want to ask him again? This is John Gibson.
Yeah, Alvin Sykes. We met at Mrs. Chady's funeral.
Yes,
Are you there?
Doing?
How you doing?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I like hearing about the, if I understood correctly, that maybe there's going to be a special prosecutor appointed in the Chady Swerner Goodman case.
Yes.
Yeah.
What happened is, for people that don't know, during the time that the preacher was indicted, on the same day that he was indicted, it took 12 votes for an indictment out of 19. And Billy Ray Posey had 11 votes for indictment. He was the next in line after preacher killing. On that same grand jury was a cousin of Billy Ray Posey, and his cousin didn't vote for his indictment. So we used that as a basis to go forward to the Civil Rights Division and say, well, there's a manifest injustice here. You have an instance where there was a relative on the jury, and it made a difference to the relative being on the jury because one more vote for indictment, and he would have been indicted. The two ways that it can be done in the options of being able to be done, of being done, is to either investigate on the federal level and turn it over to a state prosecutor to present it, or as it is in the instance that we're seeking now in Shane Goodman and Sherman, and that's to have a Civil Rights Division attorney deputized by the state who would then take the case against Billy Ray Posey and any of the other little ones and to present the case to the grand jury. The way it happens is the local prosecutor designates in this instance, let's say, Paige Fitzgerald, who was the acting head of the unit in the Civil Rights Division, to be a special prosecutor. She then comes and takes it to a judge. The judge is the one that actually makes the special prosecutor designation. And then once the judge does that, then all the decision-making flows to that prosecutor. And so Paige would then be able to take the case, present it to the grand jury, and if an indictment came out of it on the state level, she would be able to go into state court as the special state prosecutor and present the case to the jury and try the case. When myself and Ben Chaney, we went to Washington, now it's a couple of months ago, and we met with the Civil Rights Division, and they informed us then that they are looking at doing that in this case. That they're looking at the case. It is being actively reviewed, and we stressed to them the importance of going this route of having a special prosecutor to present it. Since then, I don't know if you look at Jerry Mitchell's article in the Clarion Ledger under this, it will give the latest that is out there concerning that. And we certainly feel that it will be soon, one way or the other, that the decision is made. But we don't think there's no excuse for not presenting it to it. And we feel that the federal government is very supportive in terms of representing it. Now we just need to see what the state will do in terms of the designation. But we feel good about Chaney, Goodman, and Sherman, and there are other cases where we're looking to be able to use that same process of having the state prosecutor, the Fed Civil Rights Division attorneys designated. And I know a lady earlier called in skeptical about in terms of the state. But again, it comes down to money. So the states are more receptive to doing that because, one, it takes it off of them. If it's a special prosecutor, they don't have to pay for the prosecution. So then that doesn't eat into their budget. The Fed's money is used for it. So they're more inclined. And if there's not a result to their liking, they can always say, well, the Feds are the ones that presented the case. So we find them more receptive going this route. It was done that way in Alabama with the 16th Street bombing case when that was represented. Doug Jones, who was the U.S. attorney then, was designated as the local prosecutor, special prosecutor, state prosecutor, and the case was presented, and there was the convictions in it. And we look forward to that same opportunity with at least Billy Wayne Posey, hopefully as well as others that are still living that were involved in this crime.
Yeah,
what Alvin, is like. Go ahead, John.
Alvin, you mentioned Doug Jones, and I'm sure that you're probably aware of that article where Doug Jones, the Birmingham church bombing prosecutor, was quoted as saying that when he went forward to prosecute those last two living suspects, that he had less evidence than what the state of Mississippi has available to them to go forward on prosecuting people beyond Edgar Ray Killen.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so
I thought,
and we do see that. We have the entire file, 41,000 pages in terms of in that case, and we concur. I mean, especially for Billy Wayne Posey, but there are others that are alive as well. But the evidence was strong. It's even evidenced by how many votes there were for his indictment. And there was no way that a cousin of his should have got through the questioning period, which was astonishing to me that we were talking about 2005, and not 1955. I mean, back then you could see it, how somebody would get on and nobody would know that they were related to him. But this is 2005. How did you not know that the cousin was on one of the defendants was on the grand jury? And that's why we felt it was important for the feds to become involved again, because keep in mind, they were the ones that prosecuted first when the state didn't want to prosecute the case back in '64. But they were restricted by the mandatory law, the sentencing guidelines that were in place back in of the laws that were on the books. So they only served like 3 and 4 years in federal time for it. And so now this would be murder, and they could stay the rest of their life in it. And we truly believe that there's enough to be able to bring forward. And more important than that, the process has to be fair, it has to be right, and we're in a position, unlike we were back then, to where we can do something about it to make sure that it is. And we're not going to rest until, and of the various cases, we were not going to rest until Cheney, Goodman, and Cerny is represented for the maximum amount of substantial justice, and use that as a bail for all the cases that come after that or before, in terms of when it gets back to court.
You know, also, it's interesting. Like, I want to ask the point about when you talk about prosecuting people or bringing more people to justice in the Mississippi burning 3 civil rights workers case. One thing that really boggles my mind is the fact that the guy who owned the property where them guys' bodies, corpses were found, he has not been touched by the system, and evidently he got a lot of money. And it doesn't, you know, it makes sense that Reagan, when he said he wanted to be president of the United States, would announce it in a place like Philadelphia, Mississippi, where folks can get away with cold-blooded murder and say state rights, state rights. So, I mean, how can y'all touch somebody like that? I think his name is John, was it Burridge or Olin Burridge, or how you pronounce his name?
I think the Olin Burridge is who you're talking about, I believe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, him. How can you touch somebody like that who's benefited from that type of political setup, as far as like white citizen council mentality, I mean, friends in high places mentality? How can you get somebody like that through the Till bill?
Well, in that particular instance, our normal policy is we don't talk about the individual perpetrators that may be the subject of the investigation while that is going on. We do in the sense of Billy Wayne Posey, because he was convicted on the federal level before, and the coming out as to, in terms of this process, he's the only one that had a relative on this, so there's that distinction. But from the strategy standpoint, it wouldn't behoove us, from our position, to talk further about other individuals, other than to say that our pursuit is encompassing to reach out and get the maximum amount of those living that had any part to do in the killing of Cheney, Goodman, and Cerny, that the evidence will bear, we want to see. But I wouldn't want to, at this point, to talk more in detail, even of what I do know about the rest of them. But they all should be looking out.
Alvin, in terms of Billy Wayne Posey and his 67 conviction on federal charges, or, you know, there's that other person, Jimmy Snowden, who was also convicted. And where I'm going with this, always been wondered. I've always wondered why the state of Mississippi. Well, perhaps they have gone to those people who were convicted in '67 and said to them that we have all the evidence from the '67 trial, and we can use it against you in a state court. Now, you could be a cooperative witness, or you could be a defendant right now, and if you're a defendant, we're confident we can convict you. And my common sense tells me that those people would choose to cooperate versus dying in prison unless they're people who think of themselves as martyrs, which is what I think Edgar Ray Killen does. He thinks of himself as a martyr. So what do you think about that?
I think that in terms of the strategy, other than the fact that these are horrific civil rights crimes, these people are ordinary, run-of-the-mill criminals. And when you get to ordinary, run-of-the-mill criminals, in the end they look out for themselves and try and take care of themselves. And so I think that as the walls break down, right now they all been hiding behind the fact that they could keep a shield for everybody, and haven't been turning on others on it. Now, some of those where it's unfortunate that in the prosecutions that were done on the federal level, and to the extent of some of those that testified in the state grand jury, some of them were given immunity for their statements. So it becomes an obstacle to be able to get through some of those by getting evidence other than what they have already said as being a way to get through to them. But there are very innovative ways that are coming across, and certainly by starting with Billy Wayne Posey and being able to bring that light again and to bring him down, we think that's going to lead to, without giving the total strategy, that's going to lead to rolling over on others, and we'll have the maximum chance to see if we can get any others.
Yeah, I wanted to add some information. You may be aware of this. It's a matter of public record, though. You know, we were mentioning Olin Burridge a few minutes ago, and we were talking about the grand jury. A few years ago, and I'm thinking it's about 3 years ago now, there was an executive of a community development agency in Philadelphia, Mississippi, that was going to resign. So some of the leading citizens of Philadelphia did an open letter that was published in the local newspaper appealing to this economic development executive not to resign and, stick around. He was doing a good job. And the first signature on that open letter that was published in the local newspaper, the Neshoba Democrat, the first signature on it was the foreman of that grand jury that indicted Edgar Ray Killen and only Killen. Guess who the second signature was on that letter? Olin Burridge.
Man, that's like, that's kind of, yeah, that's a problem.
I just thought that was a detail that needed to be shared.
Well, I'm glad you did. I'm very much glad you did. That's
you
why it's so important to have dialogue, because things come out that are helpful along the way. That's helpful to know.
And Alvin, I'll probably be in touch with you in the future about some reported cases that maybe you haven't received from other sources. And two of them are in Mississippi, one in Arkansas.
That'd be good. I'll be
thank you, Brother John.
To it.
And if I may, back on the Billy Wayne Posey, and it's a matter of public record about that immunity that he was granted about 3 years ago, but that was a limited immunity. They said they would not hold any statement that he gave to them at that time would not be used against him, but all that earlier evidence is it's still readily available to be used against him.
Without, like I said, without going in further detail, we have a comfort level with the evidentiary existence on it, and because of the process, we think that there may be a different result if we get it presented from with a special prosecutor from the Civil Rights Division presenting it. And so that's what we look forward to happening. We also will be down in Mississippi for the caravan that is coming up June 21st. Ben Cheney, as a matter of fact, Ben Cheney was just with me last month when I received the Louis Burnham Award in New York, and he was. We were working with him to participate in this caravan, and we will be down there June 21st, and it's our goal to have this done before then, so that by the time that we get there June 21st, that this decision either have been made or the case being underway in terms of presenting this. But we feel we're close to a decision either way with the federal government, and now with the TIL bill's passage and pending funds coming with that, and the aggressiveness that is coming out of the Justice Department. I think it's just a matter of time before the state go ahead and goes with it. Takes the local prosecutor and to be able to get the designation as a special prosecutor, and that's in the works and dialogues now.
All right, well, Brother John, we thank you for being. We got to move on because we're getting short on time. But we thank you for all that insight and helping start a dialogue that needs to be continued. Hopefully, to a diverse audience here tonight. We thank you for that.
And thank you, and look forward to hearing from you too, bro.
Okay, I'll see you in June. I'll be down there too.
All right.
Y'all have a good evening.
Hey, you too. And Brother Alvin, I was just thinking about when I'm listening to you. I know, Brother Vigalantee, we see you on there. We ain't forgot about you.
Oh no,
I'm going to have you back on.
Yeah, I'm getting that back
on. All right. I was thinking about you, Brother Alvin. What came to my mind was some great people like you. Kind of like you are to the Civil Rights Cold Case movement. What Simon Wiesenthal was to the Holocaust movement, as far as tracking down the Nazis, or Erin Brockovich was to what she was doing, and it made a movie about these people. And I was wondering, has Hollywood approached you about making a movie about your life? Because I think it's so extraordinary to don't want to be listening to a guy that's so articulate and so knowledgeable, but don't have a degree or diploma. But yet you have a true education that escapes a lot of us. But the education you got is the education they can't take from you. It's the education that Marcus Garvey got, or Ida B. Wells Barnett, or Frederick Douglass, or Malcolm got. So have anybody approached you about doing a documentary or doing a feature-length movie about your life and about your passion?
Yes, in terms of book, movie, and other deals, and I do have an agent in New York who stays focused and concentrated on that. And when the appropriate time comes to deal with that, my main motivation for participating in those is to, in an educational and inspirational way, that it may help other people to be able to use it, the results in their life, into how to pursue truth and justice, and how to gain in knowledge, because knowledge is key to power. And so, yes, but those things have been in the works, and dialogue has been going on. And like I said, I do have an agent to deal with that.
And that's wow, I also found amazing. I mean, what sustains you? I know you said doing the work that you do could be hell on the love life, and you just moving around the country, mobility wise. You're a musician too, so it doesn't help, I guess. You got the musician background. So what sustains you? I mean, what keeps you focused and motivated? Through all the stuff you got to go through, and all the things you got to just get little things moving.
Well, see, since 18, when Herbie Hancock first introduced me to Nam Myoho Renge Kyo and to Buddhism, that has been the source that has kept me going forward with a sense of knowledge of success, in the sense of when I engage in these cases and in this pursuit, it's not that I know what the end result is going to be because of some mystical action. It is because I know that by making the causes in my life and pursuing it, all righteousness will be proven. And that makes it easier to go through the pain. Plus, I also realize that my role is more of a pioneer role, and we always have to have pioneers to be able to set up in an institutional type of way. I mean, Daniel Boone's and others, and as you go through the history. So spiritualness is at the core of what gets me to be able to go through it. A sense of responsibility carries me the rest of the way, because really, if I had my druthers, and if I did what brings love to me, I'd be in a recording studio. I would be working and writing lyrics for songs and working with musicians. That's what gives me the sense of love. I do what I do now and having out of a sense of responsibility. I just couldn't sit back and knew that I know how to get a hold of the Attorney General of the United States or the Civil Rights Division or with the folks and sit up and see an injustice go down and not do it. To know that I can be able to open up lines of communications and be able to get information forward. So, but I do it out of a sense of responsibility. I mean, I get way more satisfaction out of being in the recording studio than I do in the court of law. But we all have our destiny. We all have a mission in life. And if you want to become absolutely happy, you have to strive to accomplish your mission. And when you say Simon Wiesenthal, yes, he is definitely one of my heroes. Matter of fact, part of the impetus for having the Till bill to set up an office came from that. There's an Office of Special Investigations in the Justice Department that does nothing but look for the Nazis and to prosecute them. And so we use that as part of the justification and the motivation to be involved, to get these two positions created and get the Till bill passed. And it must be for the same reason. Never, ever again should this happen and people get away with it. There should never have. I mean, if you could think about it, when our loved ones they never had a chance. I mean, when they couldn't go to the police because it was the police putting the ropes around their necks. And if you looked at Roots and you seen that scene where Kunta Kinte was finally being made to say that he was Toby and he was looking up to the sky. When he was looking up to the sky, they were looking up to us. They were going through what they were going through, knowing that it would be our generation, our people, that would get justice and find the truth for them. And we have to do it, and we are the ones that are engaged in it. You don't pick the times pick you. I didn't pick doing this. I just got picked by my experience to do it, and it keeps me going forward, and by the practice and belief in my Buddhism, I know that it leads to the happiness, absolute happiness in my life, and that makes it all the more bearable.
And people that want to get in touch with what you're doing, I mean, help you out and provide resources, or what's the best way to contact you?
The easiest way for them is if you're on the internet, enter www.Alvin Sykes, all one word, ALVINSYKES.com, and that contact sheet is a website that's under construction right now, and it will give the information for people to contact. Those that don't have the internet, you can reach me by contacting either myself, Alvin Sykes, president of the Emmett Till Justice Campaign, Inc. The address is 5501 Cleveland Avenue, Kansas City, Missouri, 64130. And you can also, and the telephone number is 816-808-1772. Or you can contact my assistant, Khadija Hardaway, and her telephone number is 816-914-4610. So that's the way that you can contact us. We are a 501c3 organization, so donations are tax exempt. We do have a fundraising program that is centered around both T-shirts for justice, where people can order and buy T-shirts for $15, and the proceeds from that helps to fund the organization. We have also the book, Death of Innocence, Mrs. Mobley's memoirs, as a fundraiser as well. And then Brother Vigalantee can give you his contact info in terms of support from the Emmett Till song.
Yeah, thank you, Brother Alvin, Brother Vigalantee. That's a good lead in.
Oh, yeah, no doubt. Yeah, definitely, you can also find what I'm doing on MySpace, as well as YouTube. You can check out the video, actually, the Emmett Till video that we did that got Alvin Sykes in there. And like I said, spell Vigilante, Vigalantee. And all you got to do is Google that, and you can easily get in touch with me. Pages upon pages of stuff that we're doing. In this one thing, real quick, sir, I think that when he said he was looking towards Alvin, what happened is Alvin did his thing, and the reason I did Emmett Till song is to get the younger generation to understand that same responsibility. And what happened is we've co-opted.
Right.
Yeah, we've co-opted, and we got to get it back to them. It's not that I don't think that they are not, I don't think they're indifferent about it, but I think that happened. The generation, the 80s and late 70s and 80s, forgot to tell them about the Emmett Till stories and stuff. Almost like we marched and got a job and forgot what we was marching for in the first beginning.
Yeah.
So I think that it's time for us to reopen it. I think shows like you, like your show and others, we need to put the pressure back on the hip-hop community to get back into groundbreaking music that can reach these kids, because the kids are integrated in hip-hop. But hip-hop at its core, when Grandmaster Flash said, it's like a jungle sometimes, it keeps me, you know the song, The Message. We got to get back to that, too. We got to, and the things that Alvin Sykes, he's humble about it, but Hollywood needs to know about this. This is the type of stories we need out there. We need these stories out there about, you got stories on OJ, great, athlete, but we need this type of story to have some other kids sitting around saying, this is what I want to do.
Right.
And if I could say this, if I could just say one thing in terms of Vigalantee's song, the song is the most correct version of the facts of songs that are out there. Now, there are various other songs out there that talk about or mention Emmett Till, but none come close to the facts as it occurred that he took the time to put into it. Now, there's creative licenses and other things like that, but it is as close to the factual statements of what happened in 55 as there is out there. Certainly the family now supports the song, and we support the song, and we certainly want people all over who can hear our voice to be able to, hit the MySpace page. You can tell I'm not as savvy on that level. You can say more of that, but hit it and get it and listen to it and get educated.
No doubt. I appreciate that.
Yeah. I appreciate you both. Like you said, I Googled him up because I was trying to find him. I discovered him late last night when I was Googling you up, Brother Sykes. And I said I had to get this brother on today. I just had to find a way. I found his MySpace page. I couldn't send him his message because I wasn't a friend of his at the time. I hope I'm your friend right now.
Yeah, you my friend, brother. You about to be on the top of my top.
Right? So, yeah, we need to do our job. We got a lot of work to be done out here because people forget it was the hip-hop generation that resurrected Malcolm. It was James Brown that, was the hero of the hip-hop because he's the one that refused to compromise who he was. He said, I'm black, I'm proud. I'm going to do what I do. I'm going to hit on the one. I'm just going to be who I am. And that resonates with young folks when you are sincere and authentic. And, Brother Sykes, I can say just from engaging with you tonight that you as authentic as they come. And I just encourage you and walk in faith and doing what you're doing because we're going to hear some more great things about you. And what's more, you're the Johnny Appleseed. You're planting these seeds that are going to grow righteously up into the next generation and beyond. So thank you both for being on tonight.
Well, thank you very much.
Ron, and thank you, Ron, because I tell you the best thing about Alvin Sykes, you said martyr, right?
Right.
He's a living martyr, and that's the greatest one.
That's right. It's always great. We can live to tell your own story.
Exactly.
Well, I certainly hope that we stay in contact and that you're able to spread the word and encourage the dialogue and pass on the numbers of people who want to have information or want to have a community forum in their community that they think that might be helpful. We just need to keep this going, and we certainly will keep you in the loop in terms of what we're doing. And as the meeting with the President and the Attorney General gets closer, we certainly want to get the word out as much as possible. And there will be a point as we get closer to the appropriations period where people will be able to express their responses directly to Congress in support of the appropriations for the bill. So this isn't the end, this is the beginning, and we will keep the lines of communications open as we all become part of this justice-seeking atmosphere that we're enveloping this country with right now.
We'd like to push your show too, brother. Your show is The Bomb Dignity. Now that you're my MySpace friend, I got to tell everybody else about the show and some of the voiceovers that you be doing. It's funny, man.
I appreciate y'all all, you know what I'm saying? In the words of Duke Ellington, since y'all both musicians, we love you all madly, and we all be news and radio. So we'll definitely be in touch with both of y'all and just keep on going in faith and hold on.
No doubt, brother.
Thank you.
All right, peace, my brother.
Peace.
Okay.
Peace.
Peace.